Thanks, Bodie. Thank you, Todd, Amanda. That was great. Good morning, everyone. I am Reverend Mary Marie Shelton, not Reverend Carol Huntley. She's actually speaking in Seattle this morning and doing a blessing of the animals, which we understand the well-behaved animals are welcome to come. So we hope that that is indeed what she receives this morning up there. And I want to say good morning to all those of you who are tuning in to us online and to our sister community in Ukraine. Hi, good morning. Welcome. For those of you that are joining us here in person for the first time this morning, we'd like to especially welcome you. We have a packet of information to give you, so you won't need to do anything at all except raise your hand up in the air so that Corrine can find you and give you a welcome packet. And also, I want to let you know, just in case that doesn't entice you enough, that in every one of these welcome packets, there is a coupon for a percentage off in the bookstore that you could take and use today. And you get a free CD as well, right? Is that true? That's true, I think. It might be true. Anyway, if you're here with us for the first time this morning, would you raise your hand so we can welcome you? Yay, brave person over here, and one back here as well. Keep your hand up just so she can find you. And we're going to just applaud you, but don't put your hand down, okay? Let's welcome those who are with us for the first time today. Corrine, there's one more lady over here on the aisle, on the outside aisle. Can you give her a wave again so she can see where you are? No? Okay. Did everybody get their packet? Or am I crazy? That's always a possibility. So let me see, where am I here? Yes. So we're at the Golden Gate Center for Spiritual Living. We are part of the larger community of centers for spiritual living. Here at GGCSL, our vision is awakening personal transformation, and our mission is teaching tools for positive change. The larger organization that we are a part of has a global vision. This is the way that they're wording it for the year of 2016, a world that works for everyone. Big vision. Would you agree? Big vision. And this month of April, our shared theme is kinship with all life. So all life of every kind, everywhere, which is particularly an interesting idea for us this morning, because we're talking about this from the standpoint of the manifest universe is the body of God. So we're talking about everything in time and space that ever has been, is now, or ever will be, is the physical expression of the presence of God. Ernest Holmes, our founder, said, body is a concrete manifestation existing in time and space for the purpose of furnishing a vehicle through which life may express itself. The physical universe is the body of God. It is a manifestation in form of the mind of God. It is that creation which, while it may have beginnings and ends, of itself neither begins nor ends. And then he says this, which I think is so interesting. The manifestation of spirit is necessary if spirit is to come into complete self-realization. Hence, body. So our identification with the universe and our recognition of who we are essential interpenetrating parts. Now our altar this morning, this is the first altar of Mary Lee. Mary, where are you? We want to acknowledge the beautiful altar that she's done for us this morning, because this altar represents the combination of the seen and the unseen. So as we look at the seen and the unseen, as it says in A Course in Miracles, I have given everything I see all the meaning it has. And we, through our interpretation, do that very thing. Because all we're doing is interpreting vibrations all the time through our senses. What things look like and what they mean come about because of the way those vibrations are interpreted. So we might wonder, if you are God. If you're already infinite, if you're an infinite being, why bother to express in form? Because form is limited, right? You can only have and be so much in one place at one time. Well, Ernest Holmes said, I've always liked Aurobindo's thought, Sri Aurobindo he's referring to, for, as he says, for the delight of God. I never heard a more beautiful expression of the mystical meaning of creation. He said it exists for the delight of God. I'm going to keep sipping on things this morning because I'm completing a dance with a virus this week. If I should need to cough, what I'll do, I'll cough, obviously. If it goes on, I'm going to ask myself to be muted, Bob, back there. If I'm coughing, not right now, I'm okay. And then when I finish coughing, and you can talk amongst yourselves. This may not happen. I figure if I acknowledge it, maybe it won't happen at all, but talk amongst yourselves. When I'm done, I'll give Bob the thumbs up and he can turn me back on. Agreed? Okay. So I got to share this crazy Nasruddin story with you. Do you know who Nasruddin is? The being of crazy wisdom who shows up sometimes in Sufi stories or Hindu stories. So it appears that Nasruddin went to a bank wanting to cash a rather large check. And the teller thought that he looked kind of disreputable. And so he looked at the check, and the check looked okay, but he just wasn't so sure. So he said to Nasruddin, well, can you identify yourself, sir? And Nasruddin pulled a little mirror out of his pocket and looked into it and said, yep, that's me. Our identification is often based on the form that we see in front of us and our identification of other people in the same way. But there's more to us than that. Thank you for that little pause-covering chuckle, whoever was doing that for me. As Alan Watts says, we do not come into this world. We come out of it as leaves from a tree. As the ocean waves, the universe peoples. Every individual is an expression of the whole realm of nature, a unique action of the total universe. So when Ernest Holmes said, the manifest universe is the body of God, at one point he went on to say, it is the logical and necessary outcome of the infinite self-knowingness of God. The logical and necessary outcome of the infinite self-knowingness of God. So if we were to say, well, why is it that spirit would want to manifest at all? I would say it is because in order to express and be expressed, it requires form, and it requires the creation of experience. So if there is no form, if there is no limitation in space or in time, it's hard to have an experience of something because it's just isness. There's no experience to compare it to or contrast it with. So there's no experience, perhaps. But in form, then, moving into deliberate limitation in time, so that there are sequences, and in space, so that there can be uniqueness and individuation, then spirit gets an experience of itself. Are you with me here so far? I got a few nods there. So let me back up. Let me express this the way that Ernest Holmes first encountered the idea from Judge Thomas Troward. Now, as you know, I'm going to be teaching a Troward class beginning in May. So yes, this is a shameless plug for my class. This is from the Edinburgh Lectures, which is the book we're going to be using. Thomas Troward, who influenced Ernest Holmes greatly when he read the transcripts of his lectures, Thomas Troward said this: the infinite must be a unity. You cannot have two infinites, nor can you split the infinite up into fractions. Now, the great fact to be recognized about a unity is that because it is a single unit, wherever it is at all, the whole of it must be. Now that's not being limited by space, that wherever it is at all, the whole of it must be. Because in the infinite, space isn't experienced in this way as a place of limitation or even expansion. That isness is unlimited. It's fully present in our experience everywhere. Does this make sense so far? It can't be limited. So if it's infinite, it has to be fully everywhere all the time. Instead of, as we would think of, if it was just one really big being with a toe over there where our AV team is sitting and an eyeball way out there at the next galaxy, spread out, but rather all of it present everywhere. So he goes on to say it is a mathematical necessity that because the originating life principle is infinite, it is a single unit, and consequently, wherever it is at all, the whole of it must be present. But because it is infinite or limitless, it is everywhere, and therefore it follows that the whole of spirit must be present at every point in space at the same moment. Spirit is thus omnipresent in its entirety, and it is accordingly logically correct that at every moment of time, all spirit is concentrated at any point in space that we may choose to fix our thought upon. And then he says, the knowledge of this fact regarding spirit is the basis of all conscious spiritual operation. Okay, so what is Troward saying there? He's essentially saying that because spirit is not limited by time or space, that all of spirit is present where you are. Where you are praying, you have access to every bit of spirit, the fullness of it, right where you are. So when I first took practitioner classes, I remember saying to my practitioner instructor, because we were sharing big ideas one day, and my big idea was borrowed from something I had heard somebody say, or I had interpreted some version of what Holmes said, and I said, God is all that I am, but I am not all that God is. And my practitioner instructor said, now how can that be? What do you mean? Well, if God is infinite, what are you saying? Only part of God is where you are? That can't be. All of God has to be everywhere. Therefore, all you can be is God, and all of God is where you are. What else are you going to be? Now that to me, are you following that? That to me was like a mind-blowing statement, and yet it made sense to me. If an infinite cannot be divided up into fractions, that infinite presence, power, intelligence, whatever it might be, and all of it is present at every point, then all of it is present where I am, then I am all that God is in one sense, even though I can't even contain the idea. Now that doesn't mean that I am that to the exclusion of any other point in space or time or any other being or person. You understand that, right? This is yes, this is no. Say it another way. Unlimitedness means that this one is complete and whole everywhere, at every individual point and collectively at every enormous expanse. Its wholeness is whole everywhere. Its wholeness is present all of the time. So in other words, when we think that something is the past or the present, it is present, it is in its now moment with the infinite, no matter what it is to us. Does this make sense? When we look at the night sky, we are not looking at what is there, because what we're looking at isn't there anymore. What we're looking at is light that has traveled so many millions of light years to be with us that we don't actually know what that star we're looking at is doing right now. It may have already gone supernova, but we haven't gotten that light yet, so we don't know that. There may have been new star birth out there, but we don't know that because that light hasn't reached us yet. We're looking at something that was, not something that is, because of distance, because of the traveling of the light. But the fullness of God is present in the nowness of it, as it is, wherever it is, just as it is with us in this moment. Does that make sense? Okay, I got a few more no's. Yeses that time. That's good. More nodding. More nodding is happening. So we're looking at this mysterious vastness, where we could say that the infinite is so vast that even as scientists look as far into space as they can look, and they begin to see the expansion of the universe that began with the Big Bang and elements of that, the reason they're seeing it now is because the universe is so vast that as it traveled from the Big Bang, because we weren't in the center of it, or maybe we were, but we traveled further. I don't quite know how that worked. We're only seeing it where we are now because it took that long through light years for that light to reach us. Yes? Okay? So it takes time for light to travel, but it doesn't take time for the presence of God to be where it's happening at the moment. Not limited by time, not limited by space. So some of you may remember when I gave the talk on the mysteries of time, I was saying that if you measure time as minutely as possible, then even when it's several feet off the ground, time is traveling differently than it is at sea level. We don't experience that difference because it's so minute. But when you magnify it by space, then time is a huge factor in the distance that something is moving, okay? Let me come back. So expression requires form and experience. That means that spirit gets to delight in experience and in form. Delight is an experiential discovery. So spirit, in experiencing itself, experiences itself through us, through form, through spring, through bumblebees, through whatever they're doing on all those other planets and galaxies where other things are happening. Spirit is experiencing all of that. And that means that creation exists for the delight of God. In other words, the reason for experiencing form looks like, the reason for expressing in form looks like it's for fun. God is having fun. That's why we're here, so that God can have fun. Physicist David Bohm says that ultimately we have to understand the entire universe as a single undivided whole. So instead of even separating it into living and non-living beings, Bohm sees both inanimate and animate matter as inseparably interwoven in a life force that's present throughout the universe. It includes not only matter, but also energy and seemingly empty space. Now, in the holographic universe, Michael Talbot said this about that. He said, according to our current understanding of physics, every region of space is awash with different kinds of fields composed of waves of varying lengths, okay? And when physicists calculate the minimum amount of energy a wave can possess, the minimum amount of energy a wave can possess, they find that every cubic centimeter, now that's tiny, every cubic centimeter of empty space contains more energy than the total energy of all matter in the known universe. Every cubic centimeter of empty space contains more energy than the total of all the energy in the known universe. So that's a lot of potential that hasn't been manifested yet. That's the unseen. So the seen contains a whole lot of energy, but the unseen contains a whole lot more. This is the divine presence. This is the infinite. All that's in form, all that's beyond form. And Meister Eckhart, the Christian mystic, who didn't even have access to quantum physics, said, God is creating the entire universe fully and totally in this present now. Everything God created, God creates now all at once. This is unlimited in time. Does that make sense? It's all now for the divine. So that makes me wonder about past lives and multiple universes. Could past lives really be past? where would they have gone? In the infinite, where there's no limitation in time and space. Or are they all happening now, in the infinite now? Is this the only universe? Well, maybe there's only room for a certain number of universes in space, but if there's really no limitation in space for the infinite, how many universes might there be? We think the smallest thing we can find now maybe is a photon. Is that right? Those of you out there who are physicists or whatever, is that the smallest thing, a photon? Quark. Okay, we'll go with that. So right now, the quark is the smallest thing we found. What if every one of those is a universe? What if our universe is a quark in some other universe? We don't know that that's not so. If the infinite is infinite, why not? So we're thinking and looking at something that is so unlimited, so completely ongoingly complex. Oops, I want to be there. It is an ongoing, complex interaction that in the divine presence is never limited and is constantly happening and being delighted in all at once. All at once. Okay, so now we go on to, so what? I mean, really, as if you're not completely baffled already. So what? So the manifest universe is the body of God. So what? Well, so what is, what the heck are we here for then? Well, if we're here to delight God, why not delight ourselves? As that presence, why not be delighted in life? Why not find the way? We are that, expressing and experiencing in a limited form in order to have an experience that can be delighted in. And so, if we actually can't get separate, I mean, we were never separate to begin with. That's completely an illusion. You can't, when you're lonely, you're hypnotized. You're operating under a delusion. When you're depressed, when you feel isolated, when you feel alone, it's completely a lie because you can't get separate. It is not a possibility. You are just as connected to the people that you care about who live in New Zealand or New York as you are to your own selves. We're just as connected. Now, this has implications for the way we treat the manifest universe when we understand that it is us. This is different than feeling like I only have responsibility for myself and my own consciousness. That's true because there's nothing you can really force to be different. Then you can operate on yourself to make a change. But we do influence everything in the universe by the perspective in which we hold it. Remember when I brought your attention to the altar earlier and I said, we're giving everything we see all the meaning it has for us. So perhaps it's time for a reinterpretation and for a love interaction with the manifest universe, with everything that we see. If we weren't afraid of other people who are different from us, if we didn't think that we needed to defend ourselves from them and to make sure to hold on to ours so that we're secure first, if we realized that they were just a reflection of us and that there isn't any they, that it's only one, we would be treating each other and the environment. Am I done? I heard a ding. Take me out of the oven now. We would be treating ourselves and everybody else and our environment perhaps differently than we are. Can you see that? I like that. Whoever did that, thank you. That was good. So we may as well express and delight in the expression. Whatever our quirks, whatever our limitations are, they're part of the uniqueness of our personal expression and experience that is delighting to the infinite. Not because there's something wrong with it, but because its uniqueness has value. If we hold ourselves that way as completely valuable, exactly as we are, if we treasure ourselves and all of our little oddities, we may discover the more that is yet to be revealed. And there is more to be revealed. So we might as well make choices, discover more, and go for it. Go for the brass ring, the it, whatever that is, for you. Because more will be revealed. As much as we think we know about medicine, about the universe, about the planet, about prehistory, as much as we think we know, creation isn't finished. It's not done yet. In fact, it's all happening now. We will never figure it all out. We will never have medicine completely figured out. We'll never have the body completely figured out. Every time we think we've had new breakthroughs, creation is still happening. And guess what? It's a little ahead of us. So we will always be discovering more as long as we're expressing in form. We will always be experiencing more. Francis Cook, who's a Buddhist scholar, describing a certain kind of Buddhism, says, "I am in some sense boundless, my being encompassing the farthest limits of the universe, touching and moving every atom of existence. The same is true of everything else. It is not just that we are all in it together, we all are it, rising and falling as one living body." And Thomas Troward says, this is the very opposite to a selfish self-centeredness. It is the center where we find that we both receive from all and flow out to all. If we contemplate our central position only as affording us greater advantages for intaking, we have missed the whole point of our studies by missing the real nature of the life principle, which is action and reaction. It's constantly giving out and responding to what is being given and received. Constantly. Just as our bodies are constantly doing what they need to be doing right now while we're listening or pretending to, or falling asleep, or whatever we may be doing at the moment, digesting our food, doing all those things it needs to do. So we and the universe are one. We are connected. I want to share a very important story with you, and I'll wrap up with this. This is a picture of an eagle named Freedom and a man named Jeff, and this is his story. Freedom and I have been together almost 20 years now, I think I would say, from this story. So she came in as a baby in 1998 with 2 broken wings. Her left wing doesn't open all the way, even after surgery. It was broken in 4 places. She's my baby. When Freedom came in, she could not stand. Both wings were broken, her left wing in 4 places. She was emaciated and covered in lice. We made the decision to give her a chance at life, so I took her to the vet's office. From then on, I was always around her. We had her in a huge dog carrier with the top off, and it was loaded up with shredded newspaper for her to lay in. I used to sit and talk to her, urging her to live, to fight, and she would lay there looking at me with those big brown eyes. We also had to tube feed her for weeks. This went on for 4 to 6 weeks, and by then, she still couldn't stand. It got to the point where the decision was made to euthanize her if she couldn't stand within a week. You know, you don't want to cross that line between torture and rehab, and it looked like death was winning. She was going to be put down that Friday, and I was supposed to come in on that Thursday afternoon. I didn't want to go to the center that Thursday because I couldn't bear the thought of her being euthanized, but I went anyway. And when I walked in, everyone was grinning from ear to ear. I went immediately back to her dowel cage, and there she was, standing on her own. Big, beautiful eagle. She was ready to live. I was just about in tears by then. That was a good day. We knew she could never fly, so the director asked me to glove train her. I got her used to the glove and then to the jesses, and we started doing education programs for schools in Western Washington. We wound up in the newspapers, radio, believe it or not, and some TV. Miracle Pets even did a show about us. Then in the spring of 2000, I was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I had stage 3, which is not good. one major organ plus everywhere. So I wound up doing 8 months of chemo, lost the hair, the whole bit. I missed a lot of work. When I felt good enough, I would go to Sarvi and take Freedom out for walks. Freedom would also come to me in my dreams and help me fight the cancer. This happened time and time again. Fast forward to November 2000, the day after Thanksgiving. I went in for my last checkup. I was told that if the cancer was not all gone after 8 rounds of chemo, then my last option was a stem cell transplant. Anyway, they did the tests, and it had to come back Monday for the results. I went in Monday, and I was told that all the cancer was gone. So the first thing I did was get up to Sarvi and take the big girl out for a walk. It was misty and cold. I went to her flight and jessed her up, and we went out front to the top of the hill. I hadn't said a word to Freedom, but somehow she knew. She looked at me and wrapped both her wings around me to where I could feel them pressing in on my back. I was engulfed in eagle wings, and she touched my nose with her beak and stared into my eyes. And we just stood there like that for I don't know how long. It was a magic moment. We have been soulmates ever since she came in. This was a very special bird. On a side note, I've had people who were sick come up to us when we were out, and Freedom has some kind of hold on them. I once had a guy who was terminal come up to us, and I let him hold her. His knees just about buckled, and he swore he could feel her power course through his body. I have so many stories like that. I never forget the honor I have of being so close to such a magnificent spirit as Freedom's. So when we say the manifest universe is the body of God, we mean that literally, and that means you. As Hafiz said, all the talents of God are within you. How could this be otherwise when your soul derived from his genes? And a new mentor of mine says this: we live in a friendly universe where everything that happens is happening for us and never against us. If it feels good, it's here to support us. And if it doesn't feel good, it's here to help us grow. But it's always a good thing, and it is always a gift. Namaste. Yes. Oh, thank you, Paul. So the spiritual principles this morning for the talk are: all of creation is present at every time and place in God, and creation is happening now. So our spiritual practice for this week, as you know, we're doing a different spiritual practice each week, is to take time each day to look around you and intentionally say to yourself, as you look at each person or thing, that is God expressing itself as Susan, as a book, as my hand, as a man, as my car, whatever. That is God expressing itself as whatever it may be. So, let's do the inner work now. I'm going to invite you to close your eyes with me. And as you do so, I want you to consider whose eyes you just closed. The I am inside you. Not the person with your name, but the feeling of the self that you are. Bring your attention to the feeling of yourself as you're just being there right now, this feeling that recognizes you as you. This is the consciousness of God recognizing itself as you. It's so normal to you. You don't even realize who it is. This grand and great beingness is that same self-awareness in the person sitting next to you and the person next to them and the person next to them. It is the awareness of being in the cell that divides. The awareness of being in the buds that cannot resist expanding and exploding in flowers in the spring. It is the changing sky and the birthing and dying stars. It is now. It is here. It is each one of us. This is trustworthy. Out of this comes all the wisdom that we need. It's present in its creative, infinite wisdom right here in us at this very moment, and it always is. Always. Everything we need to know, everything we need to discover, to realize, to become, is present right here, right now. We don't need to go anywhere else or do anything else or become anything else to have access to it. It is already ours. And so we have the courage in this moment to claim it as ours, to own it as the truth of us, to allow it to do what it will through us, in us, as us, to lead us forward into that grand delight of living that we are here to experience and express without doubt, without fear, but with love, with courage, with seeing that namaste presence of the infinite looking back at us from everything and everyone we look at. There's only one. It is here, it is now, and we are it. And so it is. Go ahead and open your eyes and enter into this special music that we're about to experience right now with Todd Boston and Bodhi Sachko.